All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back. We're on another round of some martial arts talk with some self-defense talk, and tonight I have my very good friend and martial arts training partner for years, Kyoshi Adette Rice, and Kyoshi's going to actually introduce herself a little bit and give you a bit more of a background and all the amazing things she's done in martial arts and training. And it's cool. We have a really cool history together, and we have a fun talk planned here. So go ahead and give a little bit of your background, and we will get started.
Okay, so I've got 30 minutes, right? Okay, so
That's it.
29 of them will be just talking about me. No. So the year was 1990. No, been training for over 30 some odd years. I know. You could hardly tell, but yeah, it was 1990, I believe, 89, 90 when I started training. Goju-Ryu in Hamilton, and never looked back. Currently a 7th degree black belt under Ronin Goju-Ryu Kai. But I have an extensive history competitively, done a lot of travel, a lot of competition, have a world championship under my belt. Currently, I'm working through coaching certifications, hoping to look at national coaching with Karate Canada, WKF certified coach. So really put my emphasis right now into the competitive stream because I have a lot of athletes who are interested in going that way. I own a dojo, and it's 25 years this year, so I'm pretty excited about that. Following in my little brother's footsteps. Of course, you're my persistent inspiration. So
it goes both ways. So.
And really that's about it. It's a family affair. Both my kids trained. My husband works at the dojo, so it's a all life encompassing activity that I have, dipped my toe in 1990.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's been a really cool journey for both of us because we've seen lots of ups and downs and things that we've done, and we've had a great time throughout learning, teaching, and meeting people, and it's part of what we do, and we love to talk. So we'll we'll move forward with that, and we'll get into what our top topics are tonight. So tonight we're talking all things self-defense related. And this is just a discussion, and I think that there's some really important things going on in the world right now, and even here at home, that need to be discussed. And because self-defense is a very kind of a deep topic, and it goes right down to the roots of what we do, but it goes beyond that as well. So I was going to start with our first question, and in relation to travel as a world issue, is it different for people who travel throughout the world that are different genders? Does it make a difference in where you're going and what you're doing?
Absolutely, it does. So I travel quite a bit throughout my adult life. I've done a lot of traveling, and I do solo traveling. So being conscientious of my environment has always been priority one. Gender does play in certain parts of the world. I think it's crucial for anybody who is traveling, women in particular, traveling to a new place, to understand what the culture of their destination is. Some destinations require women to have a companion in public. There's ways of dressing that are appropriate. And while it's understood that tourism happens and that the cultural beliefs might not necessarily be followed by a tourist, there are people who will take offense to that. And then that's where you see instances of aggression and harassment and violence. So knowing your destination, and not just gender, but LGBT individuals need to be aware of where they're traveling, whether it's a safe destination for them, what resources are available there for them if they get into trouble. So, I don't think any place should be off limits to anyone. If you want to go there, be there, but just know the climate of your destination, and then just be aware.
Yeah, I agree. I always, before I go places, do a quick check, depending on where I'm going. I want to know what the cultural things are. I want to know what the policing's like. I want to know if the policing is good or corrupt. I want to know what socially is going on in those areas. so I can be ready for it. Because everywhere you go is a bit different, and
Mhm.
you just want to be a little bit of pre-work on most things when you do it. Keeps you completely safe for the time you're away.
Yep.
You shouldn't be scared to travel anywhere, but you should also be aware of what you're doing, and just have a plan in place for things if they go bad. And I think a lot of people forget to do that part because they just assume it's going to be safe, and that's
Absolutely.
that's when shit kind of goes bad.
And I have direct experience with this in the last couple of years. My daughter and I traveled to Vancouver, and um, doing any amount of digging into the situation in Vancouver, you understand that they're having a homeless crisis, they're having a drug crisis, and they're having a policing crisis. So it's a beautiful city, and it didn't stop me from taking my daughter there, but knowing where the issues are, what to expect, what the police were going to be able to do for me if we ran into any difficulty, and where I could go to help. And having that knowledge ahead of time made it much easier to manage, especially when we hit some of the surprise points.
Right.
Because we did. We hit a couple spots, and I've never felt fearful when I travel, because I take all of the necessary precautions. I guess because I was with my daughter and I felt very protective, I felt that bit of fear
Hmm.
rise during one situation that we encountered, and it was a matter of, okay, I know where I am, I know what to do, I know where I have to go, and just getting everything back in check. But know the place, know the environment, know what you're in for. And if it's in chaos, don't go. Pick somewhere else. The world is huge.
Yeah, it's a very valid point, especially now with things going on, and things do change quickly. She's gonna be able to adapt and pivot, and like I said, have some kind of plan in place in case things do fail, that you have a fail safe. So,
Yep.
the things and this kind of leads into my next question. So, as just people traveling and doing things, what do you think our most important skill set is that's not physical when it comes to
Trust your
safety?
trust your gut.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. Too many people are afraid to people fear embarrassment. Absolutely the wrong thing to fear. They don't want to upset somebody. They don't want to create a fuss. They don't want to walk out of somewhere if it's going to draw attention to themselves. But damn it, how many times do we, put ourselves at risk because we had that funny feeling and then just didn't follow it? Oh,
Yeah.
gut instinct. It's a real thing. It's legit, and
Yeah, it's
I, I
100%.
I live by it.
Yeah, the gut tells us something for real. You got to go, oh, okay, because you can look at any situation, go, oh, it'll be okay. But if you've had that feeling of like, I don't know, and it's telling you that, you got to go with that. I mean, because if you leave the situation, nothing happened, you're correct. If something did happen, you're also correct. There's no fail there. You can go
Yeah.
back to it if it was fine. And I think the other one on top of that would be just our general awareness skills, just
Well, that's
identifying
all.
and watching, which is the same kind of thing.
And so when I talk about gut instinct, people listening to me might say, well, okay, so you're talking sixth sense. You're talking about something that's, more mystical, more. No, when your gut is telling you something, it's because your brain has picked up on something that is real, legitimate, tactile. There
Yeah.
has been something within the environment. You might not be able to put your finger on it, but something is wrong. So there's no magic to it. There's no, it's not anything otherworldly, right? Where people hear, oh, trust your gut. Well, no, there is like legitimate awareness skills there. They just happen in a way that our brain doesn't necessarily process them. So we need to trust that our brain has picked up something. We just
Well, because
we haven't read it yet.
because we've been taught to trust everything, and then it'll be okay, and then we find out that it's not okay to trust everything, and when something does feel off, to go with that. I think that's really important too for younger generations, for if they're going to parties and things like that, to go with that gut, because I mean that's when things can go bad quickly, and sometimes not being in the same frame of mind lets things be a bit looser in the thought process. But that primal instinct is still there. You know when something's not right, and
Yep.
sometimes it kind of makes it like a bigger thing in your head. You got to kind of go with it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those things are so important and super super important to keep track of and know that they're happening. Because I mean, it's primal. I know you and I have read some of the same books, and it's right there. But I mean, it makes complete sense. We're built a certain way for a reason. Hunters, gatherers, protectors. right?
Yep.
That's what we were at one point, and we're not much different, except now we're just ignoring some of those signals and signs.
Yeah.
I think the martial arts world helps us stay in that because we have to be aware, because we teach it,
Yeah.
and it becomes part of what we do as well. So perfect. I'm gonna move into the next one. We have our time is short. We have a lot of questions to get through,
Yeah.
and we'll see if we get to them all. But the next one's actually a pretty serious one, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. It's the child trafficking one and the effects of it on the world. And we both know it's a major problem, and it's being addressed some places and not other places, and is being washed under the carpet in a lot of bigger areas. So, I don't know where to start this one, but I mean, it does happen right here in our city that we live in. It's part of the corridor that goes through Windsor and all the way up through into Montreal. And it's a problem that's not easily going away because there's a whole lot of things to it. It's not just one thing.
Mm-hmm. Trafficking in general, not just child trafficking. I mean, that's so. I took notes when you sent me the questions. I took notes and child trafficking. Bad. That's what I wrote. Bad.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like I could probably sit here and talk for an hour. Trafficking is it's complicated because the traffickers are so smart and insidious, and their techniques are gradual at times and
Yes.
brutal at other times. Labor trafficking, children and adults. Like generally, when people hear trafficking, they tie it with sex trafficking, drug trafficking. Labor trafficking is a massive crisis, and it's happening right in our own neighborhoods.
Yes.
And teaching to not leave yourself exposed to that kind of victimization. It goes back to the other thing we've said: be aware, understand what your circumstances. Like, so many people are roped in with just the simplest
Yeah.
of
And it starts
of
at super
lures.
simple. Their approaches are good. I mean, criminals are bad people, but they're not stupid people.
No.
And for the most part, some of them are very, very smart, and they'll work a way around. They're very good at manipulation, and making you feel that you're safe, that you're secure. All those things are there, and just to get something that they want on the other end of it. They're they fall into a lot of categories of different personalities that we've talked about. Narcissistic would probably be one of them.
Yep.
But they're not stupid people, and people have to understand that the bad guy doesn't look like some creepy guy they show on TV. It's a lot of times it's the guy that looks all well to do, and has a different kind of agenda. So,
and sometimes it's the woman.
yes, yeah, it's not gender specific. Everybody always associate to be a male, but not necessarily.
And we're seeing that more and more traffickers are women, or women have been trafficked themselves and now are luring in other victims. So yeah, it's such a complicated issue, and the problem is, until they're caught, the traffickers get smarter and smarter and smarter. So
Well,
with each month, each year, they're learning more ways.
well,
And the
everything that we
technology
see,
is giving them more ways.
everything that we see technology-wise, they see,
Yeah.
right? And it can be used in either direction. And people have to understand that if you can view it on YouTube, somebody else can. If somebody can use, Chat GPT, somebody else can use it. Like, it's all these things are there as tools for good or evil. And but the good people have to win. We have to stay on the side of that and keep ahead of that curve, because that's what matters. And we could talk about that probably forever.
Yeah.
But it's a big topic. But it also leads to the next question, which is intimate partner violence, or intimate partner related violence, and this region alone. This region was pegged as an endemic here for intimate partner violence, I think 5 or 6 months ago, which is mind-boggling in my head, but not mind-boggling when you look at the whole greater scope of it, because it happens behind closed doors, and you don't know what's happening. You don't know the people. You don't know what's going on. But it is a major problem, and it's not an easy problem to get rid of.
Absolutely. And not only is it a problem in our region, I've been shocked to see um, which neighborhoods are, because they do neighborhood statistics as well. And
Okay.
for many, many, many years, the neighborhood that I live in was the top, had the top number of calls, was
Oh
leading
wow.
calls for Waterloo Regional Police for domestic violence calls. Um, and you know, I live in the suburbs, right?
Right.
It can happen anywhere. Um, and like with trafficking, intimate partner violence typically is has women as the
Yes.
women are the victims, but
Yep.
it can go both ways. And I think gender plays significantly into how how this is dealt with, how it's treated from a policing standpoint, from a legal standpoint. Um, Men who are abused in relationships are afraid to come forward out of fearing emasculation.
Yep. And just
And
embarrassment. Yep.
women, well, this has been a long-standing problem that the resources are very, very lean.
Yep.
Um, and the avenues that women are encouraged to take don't necessarily get them into a safe place.
Right.
So we're severely lacking in resources. Um, our focus in this region in particular seems to have really centered on what is our other crisis here, and that is our homelessness and our drug crisis.
Right.
But some of that homelessness crisis is also stemming from domestic violence, where people are having to flee from their home environments, but have nowhere to go because the
Hmm.
resources aren't there. And then you have a mom and her kids finding their way to a shelter, or to the shelters are not great. So then they end up on the street. So it's
It,
just
it
a
it needs to
cycle.
be it needs to become much more of a main news topic that people are starting
Mm-hmm.
to see and get educated and know that people are watching and people are starting to pay attention to this because it has to get that way. I know of too many people that have been through some very horrible things with relationships, where and all the cases that I know of where men were the abuser, and it absolutely mind boggles me, but it happens all the time, and it's a very horrible thing. And but it needs to be addressed. It needs to be forefront, and there needs to be stiffer penalties for when this stuff is happening because there's not enough out there to curb what's going on. Unless it
Yep.
becomes super severe, and by the time it becomes super severe, then it's past that point, right? And
Well,
sometimes that point is it's death, right?
yep.
So it's well beyond what it ever needed to be. I mean, restraining orders only work good on paper.
Yep.
People walk through those all the time, which is unfortunate, but because they're not scared of the consequence, right?
Yep.
So, but yeah, so that's another. Again, we could go into that much deeper. So
Yep.
I'm gonna shift this. What's that? Go ahead.
Go, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm gonna shift this a little bit now. So this now comes back to us, as martial arts instructors, and the importance of what we teach to our students, and why it's important that we teach them a code of conduct, and how to understand it, because we still teach values to our students. We give them, there's rules they have to follow, and I think it's really important because socially we have to also work in the dojo and get along and learn all these attributes with all kinds of different people and things. And I think it's a stepping stone to kind of the next part. So go ahead.
So, have teaching values. Okay, so every generation says, uh, the next generation is going to hell in a handbasket, right? Our parents said it
Yes.
about us, and their parents said it about them. Um,
Now keep in
and
mind we were angels,
yeah,
right? So yeah.
totally, totally.
So
Okay, for as much of a hmm, can't use bad language here. For a difficult child I may have occasionally have been in my youth and teen years, I respected myself. I respected my parents. I respected my teachers.
yes.
Um, so I might have been a poo poo head,
You know,
but
we had a fun youth, but I mean, we also did have we had those values. We for sure respected people and our friends, our grandparents, our parents.
Yep.
teachers. I mean, that was so important, and I think that some of that has been lost.
I
Well, I don't think
agree.
I know it's been lost,
You
and it's
know,
unfortunate.
when you just need to spend a half an hour in a school. Like, I know that there were those kids when we were kids that had no problem mouthing back to the teacher.
Right.
But now it's like they're all talking back to the teacher.
Because there's no
Like,
consequence.
there's no there and no consequence because now the teachers are hand tied. Now, there were things that were happening when we were kids that, they needed to go away.
Yeah.
There were punishments that were needed. They were removed because, not because we got soft, but because they were just flat out wrong. Like, the
Right.
idea that there was a strap in the school, but like, even having the fear of that does something to your head. So I mean, there have been positive changes, but it's like the pendulum has swung completely the other way, and now there just seems to be so little respect. So when we're in the dojo, and it's not even that we're teaching respect, though we teach respect, everything is in a respectful environment. There's empathy. Excuse me. There's compassion. There is patience. And it's not that we sit down and teach a lesson on patience, or I read you a book about patience
Right.
or cooperation. We just do it, and we do it repetitively, and we do it consistently. And if you don't, there's consequences, and there are consequences that fall within the realm of respect. Because I don't believe respect is earned.
Right.
I don't. I think everybody should be respected until
Until not.
until you do something to make me not respect you.
Right.
Honesty. I will believe you and trust you until you give me reason not to. So that's I think in a well-run school like yours and mine, those lessons are just intrinsic into everything that we do.
Mhm.
We don't have to sit down and teach it, but we have to, because it feels like it's not happening anywhere else.
I know. Yeah. And I think too, as instructors too, and for ourselves, that we teach a curriculum based on ability, right? And years trained, because we know things and we've seen things where it comes to training that we wouldn't want to teach to a new student,
Yeah.
because we wouldn't want to give them the ability to have some kind of a skill set that could hurt somebody and not understand what it does. And I think that nobody really understands it until they train. Because I mean, a punch is a punch until you punch somebody and you really hurt them, or they fall down and they die because they hit their
Mm-hmm.
head. And, we're responsible when we teach people, but people are responsible for what they do, and they have to understand that. And to teach somebody techniques when they first start that could cause that kind of, I mean, and that can happen with anything we do. But I think we're very careful about how we introduce things as we teach. And when people show that they're ready for it, that's when they get it. And it's never in the first month or the
No.
first year. It's usually it's like way down the road, because it's important information that we pass on, but only to the right people.
Yep.
Right. And then, sometimes it takes a long time to know that person, to know that they're going to be okay with that info, and then pass it to them. And sometimes we just
Yep.
don't know. But I mean, it's a very careful process that we have. And I think it's important, because I think a lot of times people learn things they should never learn at a beginner level, and they can learn it anywhere. I mean, you can find anything on the internet, but
Yep.
it doesn't mean you know how to do it or understand it or respect what it does. And that's where
Yep.
that's where all things kind of fall bad.
Yep. When we get somebody coming in and they're like, I want to sign my son up for karate because I need him to learn how to beat up his bully.
Right.
We are not the place for you. But if you would like your child to learn how not to get bullied, then go ahead. We will absolutely take him down that path. Yeah.
Right.
Or the guy that comes in and I want to learn how to fight. Hey.
Yeah. Or I'm a street fighter. I'm like, oh yeah, what street do you fight on? Those are the best lines ever, right? So, but yeah, I mean, we do have that. I mean, so sometimes it's just good to smile at people and have them walk back out your door. And keep the people that really want to learn and expand their life, because the martial arts goes beyond that. But we'll keep it as a self-defense type discussion at the moment. So think of this now. What would be some advantages and disadvantages to people that train in the relation to self-defense? Because there are some advantages and disadvantages to both, based on ability. And well, I'll let you take the question first. We'll go from there.
Okay, so we only have a few minutes left. So advantages. Being able to understand the awareness of space,
Yes.
just from a very physical standpoint. I've become pretty attuned to knowing when somebody's going to punch me in the head, so I've learned how to deal with that. I think the disadvantage, one of the disadvantages is ego.
Yes.
I can punch, I can block, so that means I can defend myself.
Right.
No, no, because what happens in the dojo is not what happens in real life.
Right.
So, and I think that, and I've seen it in courses that I've taught. As soon as I go into a place where somebody has whatever, I'm a yellow belt, I'm a green belt, I'm a black belt, all of a sudden their brain shuts off to actually learning any self-defense. I'm not in here to teach you karate.
Right. Yep.
I'm in here to teach you self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different skill set. So I think that training can throw that shield up, but it teaches things like body positioning and awareness and timing that your average person isn't necessarily going to have, at least not without repetitive
Yeah.
practice.
I think one of the big things it teaches too is that it teaches you what it's like to get hit.
Absolutely.
Because if you're training in the dojo, you are going to get hit at some point, and it's an eye opener. Because the first time it happens, you'd be like, "Whoa, what was that?"
Oh yeah, it's
Or you
shocking the
shut
first
down, or
time.
you get mad. You learn to deal with your emotions, right? Where in the real world, nobody really cares if you've been hit or not before, and they don't care if you respond to it well. But the
Fighting
dojo
with you. Fighting with you taught me, because you used to kick me in the head all the time, you and that damn hook kick. And I would get pissed off, and it's like, okay, that's what he's trying to do to me. That's what he's trying to do to me.
Just building character. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, and we've taken it in the dojo many times from many different people because it's part of the process of learning, but it really teaches you what it feels like on the other side of that as well, and gives you that kind of compassion, that feel for the other way it goes. But I mean, I think the biggest thing that sometimes we teach or not teach, but is a false sense of, like you already said, being able to throw that punch, go, I can throw a punch now, I'm good anywhere. And I think that is one of the hardest barriers to make people understand. And I don't think they really understand for maybe a long period of time, and maybe never. But I think the more they train, the more they do, right?
Yes.
Because they do understand. Because if they're sparring more, they're going to see that they're not going to win all the time. And just because they can throw a punch isn't going to save them in that situation. And they'll see that in sparring. And it gives a pretty live, real world feel to what it's going to kind of be like. It's not the same. I mean, we can't mimic that in the dojo. It just isn't possible, because it becomes a whole different kind of training at that point. But I mean, you do definitely get a sense of it, and people do go, "Oh, okay, that really sucked when I just got hit in the head, or hit in the stomach, or I got kicked in the leg and the knee by accident, I fell down." Like, all these things are things that can happen. So but there's more advantages to training than not training. Like they go way over and above it. It teaches so much. And then
putting all those things together, you've got this experience that this win-lose, right? You've got win-lose in the dojo. I think when people think of self-defense, they think of it as black and white. So either I'm going to be murdered, or I'm going to successfully defend myself and I'm going to come out scot-free, not realizing that it is an engagement where you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, and most times self-defense isn't going to be at the high level of, like, a crazy random attack that is so over the top. I mean, those do happen. I'm not going to say that they don't, but they're not as common as something more low level.
Yep.
And to be able to respond to that. But I mean, when violence hits, it hits hard, and it doesn't give a shit whether you've trained or not trained. And it's going to put you in a position where you hopefully have trained, because you're going to recognize it, and you're going to be able to put it together and start working, forward from that point to get to your outcome, right? And I think that's one of the biggest advantages is learning that, and confidence, real world confidence. It starts to happen in the dojo, right? If you're following the proper training and teaching and all that stuff, it does happen for sure, and we see it all the time, which is great.
Yep.
So my last thing then leads to this is the Gono-sen, Sen, Sendo-sen. And we know how we'll break it down as to what it means kind of more in English, but how these apply to self-defense situations. We've kind of already talked about it, but Gono-sen is just the sense of, like, seeing it, blocking, possibly countering, or just creating the space. The sen is the blocking, counter at the same time. However you want to, that's the easiest breakdown that we can put it to.
Yep.
And then Sendo-sen is striking first before the actual attack happens, knowing it's going to happen, which is all about that awareness and that gut feeling we've already talked about. I think that's the most important one, because if you know something's going to happen and it's imminent and it's going to be violent and bad, why not hit the person first? I
Yeah.
mean, legally, you would say that you're in trouble, but I mean, if you know something's going to be very bad, I wouldn't say to do that verbally right now in this moment, but I was saying, really think your options through quickly, because it might create the space you need to get away and put like a little bit of a surprise in the situation per se.
Hmm. I like to look at Sen as attack the intent. Because right, if we just look at just brute force, right? Block and counter simultaneously, and then strike first. We take out that whole awareness aspect. I mean, you have to be aware to strike first, but
Yes.
if we attack the intent, it doesn't have to be about our fist. It doesn't have to be about striking. It can be about using our voice, like you said.
Yes.
It could be about walking away. It could be about getting somebody's help. Like there's so many different ways to attack
And
the intent,
and that's
but
the
you gotta
nicest one of them
trust
all.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you
That
gotta
is the
trust it. You gotta trust it.
and that makes complete sense, because I mean, I explain those just in a physical aspect, but you put it together beautifully in like a non-physical aspect, which makes complete sense. Because if you can see it happening and you can leave it, why wouldn't you? Right? Unless you imminently cannot get out of that situation, why wouldn't you? Because then you're
Yeah.
antagonizing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't want to antagonize. We want to always be on the out if possible. But I mean, different situations would have different things happening. So, but yeah, we made it through every question.
Nah.
Oh no, we missed one. All right, the final one. I missed it.
Okay.
Ready? Okay, so this is for your favorite fight scene or character from a movie or TV show, and it can be from any.
Okay. Okay. So
You go
I'm doing
first.
fight scene, which I think is funny because I don't watch martial arts films. I don't watch fighting films.
Okay.
However, okay, I got three, and they're going to be real fast
Okay.
in reverse order. Okay. Perfect Weapon, Jeff Speakman. He does a fight on the dock. He does like pretty much a clinic on the application of Shoshin. I love it. It's like
Yes. Okay.
it's brilliant. Number two, the first fight scene in the movie Blade in the nightclub.
Yes.
Blood's
Okay.
coming out of the roof. Absolutely fantastic. And drum roll. They live. Roddy Piper and Keith David, 6 minutes.
Really?
Pounded the crap out of each other. Loved that scene.
Wow. Okay. I didn't think that deeply, but you brought them in the Speakman one. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, The Perfect Weapon was a great movie way back.
And
Still is now.
he's kind of cute.
Yeah, he's in pretty decent shape. Oh my god, like
Yeah.
unbelievable. I'm thinking a bit more current, because I also don't watch martial arts movies hardly ever. But I think back to like some of the Chuck Norris stuff, Bruce Lee stuff. I mean, there's some really cool stuff in those movies for sure. Obviously, there's Bruce Lee's fight scenes were all pretty real for the most part. But I'm going right now to do you watch Reacher?
No.
Oh, okay. So Reacher has what I would call some of the best choreographed fight scenes that look real, and I think would work in 98% of situations, even if you weren't Jack Reacher.
Okay.
And yeah, and he's a big dude, but they've put it together very nicely and choreographed nicely, so it's not really complicated. It's just to the point,
Right.
and I just like it. So, but that's just my opinion for right now. This current
Yeah.
things going on, but yeah,
I went absurd because like I said, I don't watch martial arts films because I find myself dissecting
yes,
and analyzing and I just want to be entertained. So if I've got a 6.5 minute Roddy Piper and Keith David fight happening in a ridiculous alien movie, that is something that I will watch. Everything else is ends up being work.
like yeah, like I love the Jason Bourne series, and the fight scenes were great, but they were so complicated. I mean, for
Well,
movie they were great. I mean, and it looked awesome, but I mean, it was also the way they videoed and shot it and stuff. It was hard to watch, but
yeah,
the I like this thing where you can just it's like one camera angle, but you see it all and go, oh yeah, that looked pretty awesome
yeah,
and pretty workable.
or like the what's the Keanu Reeves series?
Oh,
Um, It just goes to show you how often I watch these movies. They killed his dog.
Yeah, I just
Anyway, it's the same there. Like the fight scenes were just so absurd, but not good absurd.
John
Like
Wick.
John Wick. There we go. It's they were
Thanks, Jill.
they were really like high production fights,
Yes.
but like come on, either make it absurd like They Live or Blade, or give it to me for real.
Yeah, I agree. John Wick the last movie was too much for me. It was the amount of ammo that he went through in that movie. He would have needed a transport truck. Like it was so way past what any kind of reality thing was. But anyway, that's another whole day.
Yeah.
But this has been great. It was awesome talk. I really appreciate your time, and your expertise is so important on all these because we have years of experience of seeing lots of different things, and you've got amazing education on this stuff as well. So that's why I really value your opinion and time. So thank you very much. And we'll do this again. We'll pick a different topic and we'll hit like one topic for a night.
Sounds good. Awesome.
Thank you. One
All right.
second.